Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee here. It is a Wednesday night, September the 12th, 7:03 Eastern Time. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Just sometimes I get a little bit delayed because I have to do a live TV hit for New Jersey at the top of the hour, so that took slightly longer than usual. But no matter, I'm here. We've got a lot going on, obviously. I'll probably be joined by my colleague Addison Green in short order. At least that's the plan. And in the meantime, we're going to get going on on tonight's broadcast. Let me just say, just off the bat, I know I'm going to try to get to you at some point in terms of your questions. So I will scroll through everything and won't forget. Addison Green just walked in. He's going to get his chair. I'm going to get ready. There he is. When we're going to start off, folks, I'm going to start off with the Hurricane Center's latest advisory and the official forecast. And as always, and I said this many times, and I'm going to keep saying it, you want official information with regards to any decisions that you may have to make. You probably should have had to make them already, but you want to rely on official information. So please go to the National Hurricane Center's website, nhc.noaa.gov, or your local National Weather Service office, and you can access that by going to weather.gov, or the local officials in your county, in your town, in your city. They could answer the questions that I really can't answer for you. Okay, so where are we in all of this? We've got the latest advisory here, 30.9, 72.5 west, maximum sustained winds 120 miles an hour, moving northwest at 16. Now, the top winds have gone down, but the pressure has actually stayed about the same. I'll bring Addison Green in on this, and we'll bring up the satellite view. You can probably explain what's been happening today.
Yeah, taking a look, Joe.
Get closer so they can hear you.
Let me get on in there. Hi, everybody. Yeah, definitely this has turned out to be a very interesting and unsettling situation right there. I mean, you're looking at the infrared imagery of Florence, and it looks a little lopsided, and don't get fooled by not having that consistent donut shape appearance that you typically see when you're talking about a hurricane. It's still a very powerful storm system, category 3, so it has gone down in categories, but it's packing winds of 120 miles per hour, and it has increased its wind field, and that's why you see those clouds, those outer bands towards the top of the satellite loop, are now further away from the storm. So you're creating that bigger wind field that can reach further along.
The gales extend out just shy now of 200 miles from the center. You'll notice, by the way, that there isn't a whole lot going on the south side. So there's probably some sort of issues, be it maybe a little bit of dry air, or perhaps there's a little bit of shear. But nonetheless, I think you're correct. It is still obviously a powerful hurricane. It doesn't have that buzzsaw look when you get it to a strong Cat 4 or Cat 5, but it's every bit as strong. But the implications of the expanding wind field are very important, because that is going to it's going to increase the magnitude of the storm surge on the Carolinas, and that is not good news here.
No, absolutely not, because now you're dealing with a prolonged period of having those relentless tropical storm and hurricane force winds battering the coast on top of the heavy rain and on top of the ocean itself coming ashore. You got all three, a trifecta right there. And a lot of those areas have sand dunes and they're sandbars, so they can only take so much before they start to get impacted and washed away. And Joe, we were talking earlier this week, Hurricane Isabel, if I'm not mistaken, reshaped the Outer Banks when it came in through that region.
Yes.
I think back in 2004, if I'm not mistaken, where there was a new inlet created because that storm just carved its way through the Outer Bank Islands.
There's been no change in any of the warnings, and the track has been nudged a little north or a little south depending on which advisory you look at, but it's essentially remains the same. And there are a couple of issues regarding this. First off, south of Edisto Beach, you've got hurricane watches up. So that includes Charleston and South Carolina. I'm sorry, the Santee River. South of the Santee River to Edisto Beach in the pink area is a hurricane watch. The warnings extend from the Santee River in South Carolina, that's in that purplish area, along with the storm surge warnings and watches that are up, the storm surge warnings. Going from there up the coast through coastal South Carolina, then it turns up northward once you go north of Hatteras to Duck, North Carolina, back to a watch to the North Carolina border, and a tropical storm watches up for a small portion to Charles Light in southeastern Virginia. That has not changed at all, and I don't expect it at this point to change. But the Hurricane Center brings it to the coastline as a major hurricane before it weakens it a little bit, which kind of makes sense. You can see it right here, and the latest track would take it just south of Wilmington, actually right in the area of Wilmington and the beaches. The distance from Wilmington down to the beaches at Carolina Beach, I believe, is 13, or the beaches in Wilmington, 13 miles. And then that track goes west-southwest from there. And by the way, this is a long duration we're talking about. We're talking about the early morning hours on Friday making the approach and not getting to the Myrtle Beach area until maybe sometime later on Saturday. So this is a very, very long duration event where the coastline is being absolutely raked. And of course, the storm surge is going to be strong up in these areas to the north because they're getting the sweep in from the southeast.
Yep.
So even though perhaps the weather might be not as fierce, the storm surge in this area could wind up being even higher.
I definitely agree, Joe, because that's a shallow area right there in terms of the depth of water. I mean, you're talking about probably on that continental shelf, maybe a good 20, 30 feet in the sound. So you're going to easily be able to push that water inland. And those are all freshwater marshes and bogs, right there in the Pamlico Sound.
Pamlico
Sound.
Pamlico and Albemarle Sound, yes.
Make sure I can say that correctly. So that way, there's already water right there. So all that water is going to go further inland, going upriver towards Greenville, for instance. And definitely when you're talking about making that landfall potentially just south of Wilmington, I mean, you said that's only 13 miles away from the coast.
Yeah, from the downtown to the coast.
So say that path is exactly where the eye goes. You have hurricane force winds 70 miles away from the center of circulation. You're now going to hammer that region for maybe 6-8 hours of hurricane force winds pushing
or
all
even
that
longer.
water. Yeah, or longer. I mean, Wilmington is going to be severely impacted, and it sits, I believe, right on a river too. So
right, and all that water, that tidal flooding water, is going to go in. I'm going to go on the storm inundation tool. We can look at the storm surges. Where you see the red lines there, that is where we have the storm surge warnings up. So basically, for the Outer Banks, this the southeast facing Outer Banks, and then a portion that goes north of Cape Hatteras, and then you see the boxed area in Pamlico and the triangle that's drawn in Albemarle Sound, storm surge warnings, and then the purplish area reflecting the hurricane warning. So we've got some serious, certainly serious stuff here going on, and we can look at the inundation tool. This is the area. Pamlico and Albemarle Sound is a little further north, and I'll move it up. But we'll zoom in, and you can see these darker browns. Those are areas where the water is going to be 9 feet above the ground. It's not measured in terms of a tide, say 9 feet above normal. We're talking literally 9 feet of water above the ground. The yellow, I want to make sure I got the scale right. I stand corrected. I'm sorry. I mean, if it's in red, it's 9 feet above the ground. The brown is 6 feet above, the yellow 3, and the blue 1. So we're talking 6 feet above the ground in this area here. Now, when we move to, I wish there was a way they would. One of the things Arapahoe, North Carolina. I'm not familiar where that is. The Bay River. But you can see the storm surges that are being forecasted in the back parts of the Bay River where your reds show up. And that's where to Alliance, North Carolina, for example, and I believe that's Bayboro, North Carolina, storm surges of 9 feet above the ground. So any of the areas that are bordering waterways that come off the back bays, when we look, here's the Pamlico River. If we go up the Pamlico River to Simpson, Grimesland, I mean, this is a long stretch of area here upriver, up to Greenville, North Carolina, with 9 feet of water above the ground, according to the Storm Inundation Tool. And you folks at home, you can access this tool on the Hurricane Center's website, nhc.noaa.gov. It is on there with the advisories for Florence, and you can zoom down into your own neighborhood if you happen to live in any of these areas with respect to trying to figure out what the storm surge is going to be. When you look at the Outer Banks, there are some pockets here. You got to get really, really tight. It doesn't get tight enough with respect to showing the whole surge. The detail isn't quite there for the Outer Banks because it's so narrow. And then we'll go down south and west of Wilmington. Now this area here, I think, Addison, is subject to change, because if we wind up with a track that's further south and west, if the landfalls occur in different places, you're going to change the profile of the storm surge.
Absolutely. In fact, you're going to be dealing with, if that system, say it doesn't make landfall, it just gets close to the coastal areas, comes to a crawl because there's no steering currents, and then it slowly gets a chance to drift south and west, runs right along the shore. You're thinking to yourself, okay, it's not making landfall, we're fine. No, not really, because now you're bringing around that constant surge offshore of the storm surge, the hurricane force winds, and if it goes right along the coastal areas, it'll act like a buzzsaw, just carving its way down. And you're going to see a lot of coastal erosion, beach erosion going on, and then any of those structures that are right along the shore, they're going to go right out to sea. And you're dealing with all the coastal communities getting that heavy rain constantly coming down relentlessly. And Joe, that was something I was also concerned with, that these are the low countries right there, just east of 95, I believe, and you're getting the heavy rain coming on down, and you're getting the storm surge coming in for the coastal areas. But that rain, as the system moves inland, goes inland as well. Well, all that water is going to flow down eventually, going right into the low country as well. So you're going to get hit in both sides, and a lot of those areas east of 95 could be dealing with significant or catastrophic flooding.
Going up the coast, for those of you who are in Maryland, Delaware, you notice you see the storm surge tool actually cuts off. There are no impacts here for Long Island, New Jersey, Delaware. You start to see some impacts, minor impacts around Virginia, south of Virginia Beach, with a little bit of tidal flooding in some of the northern back bays of Albemarle Sound, but there are no real issues. Also, some minor issues in areas in southern parts of Chesapeake Bay, near Hampton, Newport News. Just some minor flooding here, a foot above ground, and you got actually a few pockets in the waterway that's south of Newport News that runs inland, where you've got a few pockets of 3 feet being indicated. But this is certainly minor in comparison to other places down in the Carolinas. Obviously, I'm just kind of looking my way up through Chesapeake Bay, and some of this actually might even be new moon related still, so it may not be all hurricane induced. But just want to emphasize that the areas you're going through the northern mid-Atlantic and through the southern New England, which is the area that Addison and I cover. There are no material impacts regarding the landfalling hurricane. The remnant rains that we may or may not get early next week is a whole totally separate issue, which we'll see if we can get into it if we have time. But we'll jump now to, we saw this satellite view. I've got the wide satellite view just to show everybody how busy the tropics are. You've got a new subtropical storm to the northwest of Helene, and that's subtropical storm Joyce. There's an upper low that's sitting on it, so that's why it sort of looks like this pinwheel with a small core of convection near the middle. But until it separates from the upper low, it'll be subtropical. But Helene to the southeast of it, that's actually getting drawn northward because of that trough that's up there. Isaac, which really doesn't look very healthy right now, east of the Leeward Islands, there's still a circulation, but there's shear going on Top winds are 60 miles an hour. That is moving westward, and they do have tropical storm warnings up for some of the islands. We get a chance, we'll mention that. Of course, you can see Florence. And then, of course, there is the low-pressure center that is now developed in the Gulf of Mexico. And that the weather with that remains very disorganized, but there's actually a center of low pressure there. And the Hurricane Center thinks that that has a shot of becoming a depression tomorrow. So this is about as busy a tropics as you ever see.
Yeah, and we are dealing with potentially, if it does become a named storm, having something unprecedented. As long as the records have been kept for the Atlantic Basin, is having 5 named storms on the field at the same time. We've had it as much as, I believe, 4 not too long ago, a few years ago. But
5
hasn't happened.
5 has not happened. 3 of them would be tropical storms, and assuming Helene, which has been weakening a bit today, 2 of them would be hurricanes. So the non-busy, quote unquote, non-busy hurricane season has suddenly become potentially record-breaking from the standpoint of having 5 storms on the map in the Atlantic Basin at the same time. Indeed, an odd occurrence.
Yeah, and we have, we have ourselves sitting right here in the peak of the Atlantic hurricane season. Going from June 1st to November 30th. So going through the middle of September, September 10th through the 20th, that is the peak right there, climatological peak. And so we're entering the heart of it. And so, all this activity is right on schedule. We went through August with, barely a whisper out there, especially like a good 3-week stretch. But now things are picking up, and Joe picking up full steam.
Yeah. The Weather Prediction Center's rainfall map has a 20-inch plus rainfall area designated for southeastern North Carolina, west of Cape Hatteras, and touching into South Carolina. This is all, of course, going to be track related, so the track's going to mean everything in terms of how far inland. I can envision that 20-inch line being pushed further north and west, and also pushed further west into South Carolina. This is certainly going to be an excessive rain event, mainly because this thing is going to be moving so darn slowly.
Yeah, nothing is going to be steering, I should say, it out of the picture. It's going to go into the coastal areas, gradually weaken over time due to its interaction with the landmass, and then eventually the high pressure sitting over our neck of the woods will move a little bit further east, pulling this a little bit to the west, so it'll be a developing area of low pressure.
Well, we can show that. So I'm going to bring up the. We'll bring up the GFS first, and we can take a look at the upper air and what's happening. And everyone here that's been on every day has been through the drill with this, and we know that you've got this Atlantic ridge that's basically has Florence cradled around it. Then the upper high splits in two. Part of it is on the Atlantic side. Part of it is in the Ohio and Tennessee Valley, and actually, if there's also a piece of it that is up in New England and upstate New York, and that's important because eventually the ridge that's to the north builds over the top of it, and that's why this is moving the way it is. You could ask the question here at this point, Addison, where you could say, well, Joe, the ridge is split in two, and why is it moving? Why is it not moving north-northeast, which is what they would like to do? The problem with that is that you've got this upper high to the north, and as that is building, it's creating a northeast flow. The steering currents actually turning them northeastward from Virginia on south. In fact, through much of the East Coast, the upper air winds are going to be from the northeast and east, and that's going to force the hurricane. It's not going to be able to move northward. It's going to start moving southwestward, and that's why the upper feature does what it does. Then finally inland. And by the way, this could make multiple landfalls. The margin, we're talking about a handful of miles from where the model has the hurricane, and from where it could wind up. When Irma went on land in Florida last year, the track forecast was very good, but it was 20 miles off, which is a really very accurate forecast. But if this is off by even 10 or 20 miles, could be the difference of having something centered, say, over downtown Wilmington versus having it centered along or just offshore the beaches. and that changes that can change the impact in a number of different ways. You could speculate on how it could change it, but the bottom line is this is a long range event. This is, you're going to start seeing gales coming in tomorrow evening. This is Thursday night, and this is Friday night, and this is Saturday night, and we're talking about a very short distance going from inland South Carolina there to where Wilmington is. It just doesn't move very far.
It's like about, I would say, put into perspective, a 3-hour drive, 4-hour drive.
Basically.
If you're driving in your car from the coastal areas of Wilmington towards central South Carolina, that system has traveled that distance in 3 days for 4-hour drive. So, yeah, it's crawling along. In fact, I was just hearing one meteorologist say, you can walk faster than this system will be moving.
Correct.
Once it comes on land.
Assuming you had no weather to walk in. Here, I've got the tight southeast view, and I think this will be pretty. This will give us a better perspective with the bigger geography, and you'll see how long it takes with Florence. This is at 2:00 tomorrow afternoon, and if you want to believe it, already getting some solid rains coming into the Outer Banks. I don't see any reason to argue with that. And then as it starts to make its turn more toward the west, at this point at 2 a.m. Friday morning, it looks like it's right on the immediate coast, probably near Wilmington or somewhere between Wilmington and Jacksonville, North Carolina. Here it looks like it's just inland Friday morning, and this is Friday 2 p.m., Friday 8 p.m. Now we're moving southwestward, just inland of the coast. The margin of error is very small. It could be along the immediate coast, half the eye onshore, half the eye offshore. Now we're into South Carolina. This is where you're going to be watching this thing slowly spinning down in all of this. And now at this point, by the way, Addison, you've got southerly winds blowing in this area, and that's going to push even more water. So we're talking about multiple tide cycles here with tidal flooding.
Yeah. I mean, this is like one of the worst case scenarios that we could see with the storm system, because not only does it go right towards the shore at its speed and then slows down, but it's going to go down the shore as opposed to going up the shore, which means that right front quadrant has more of a chance to cover more land over a long period of time, which means you're going to constantly get the rain, the wind, the storm surge from Jacksonville, Morehead City, Wilmington, all the way down towards Myrtle Beach. All those coastal communities are going to be significantly impacted. And I'm just glad, Joe, that this isn't like the heart of summer, because if we had to deal with a situation like that, a lot of people vacationing in those areas,
right,
you'd be dealing with a epidemic.
It is the low season for vacations in the Outer Banks. And this is Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. Sunday morning, we're still in South Carolina. North Carolina getting the inland areas of North Carolina and southwestern Virginia getting into some heavy rains at this point. And the low on the GFS anyway, and even to some extent the Euro, they're not that far off in eastern Tennessee by Sunday night. And at this point, two things I want to say, because I did see a question about the system in the Gulf of Mexico. You'll notice that the GFS doesn't do anything with that. Okay, that's not to say it can't still develop, but it doesn't seem like to me that conditions there are ideal for development beyond maybe a tropical, get a depression, might get a minimal tropical storm out of it, but I can't imagine the model would miss if there were something more important. So that at least might be good, good news for you folks in that particular area, because I think everybody's kind of touchy at the moment. Also, for the northern mid-Atlantic states, and for up north, the southern New England, through all of this on Saturday and Sunday, it could be partly sunny. In fact, when we go into Sunday, there's actually drier air that's coming down and pushes in. So at least here, where we are, no impacts.
Yeah, no, we'll be fine. I mean, like originally earlier on this week, it looked like it could come up closer towards us. We would get some rain, some wind. But, those chances have decreased drastically, as Joe had mentioned, that high pressure building on in. So we're actually looking forward to a pretty decent weekend here across our area. But like we were saying earlier, we'll worry about the remnants of Florence when we get to it, which would probably be looking at the GFS right here, it'd be like Tuesday into Wednesday. It could be starting to Monday, depends on how slow the system slows down, or quickly I should say, moves on up.
Right.
But like what we had back on Sunday, Monday, even throughout Saturday, portions of Saturday, the cool dampness, the heavy rain that came by in patches, that was from Gordon. That was from earlier on last week that impacted portions of the Gulf Coast. So that's the kind of picture you'd be expecting when dealing with Florence.
Here's the rain amounts generated by the GFS model. We're talking in the yellows, that's all a foot plus, and in the brighter yellows, we're talking 20 to 24. So virtually the whole state of North Carolina is getting vast amounts of rain. The eastern parts of South Carolina, and there likely are going to be, just like there was in Harvey, where they had these areas with these locally higher amounts in parts of southeast Texas that got double what everybody else got. I think you could very well see this here. The rainfall amounts, by the way, that are model generated have a tendency to be 50. They could be 50 to 100% higher than what's shown. That's been the experience with tropical systems. The models don't, have a tough time with the big numbers. So I would be especially vigilant if you're in Western Virginia and West Virginia with the remnants, because the models are producing some 3-4 inch amounts in some areas there, and those could wind up being substantially more than that. But that is going to depend on the track of the remnant low. And I want to just bring up the European at this point. And we're not going to be able to see the precip with this, but I just want to show everybody what the European's idea is. Very similar to the GFS. It's a little bit further south and west. It basically takes the low down to Charleston before it brings it inland, and then turns it into Georgia for a brief time. And then it starts to rocket ship this up to the northeast. This is the remnant low, the remnant circulation, and that would bring, by Wednesday morning it'll be over with, but for Tuesday and Tuesday night, that could bring a round of maybe 6 to 9 hours of heavy rains and maybe some gusty winds if it's a low like this.
Yeah.
But that's going to depend, Addison, on how much, if the core circulation survives intact, and you'll see it very obviously on the radar. Then this could be a bit more of a substantial rain producer, say across Pennsylvania, New Jersey. But we don't even know that this is right.
Right. I mean, this is so far down the pipeline. Looking out, I should say, more than 3 days, you're getting a really rough estimate. Now going that far out, you're really kind of like hedging your bets on what you're going to be seeing to being, truthful or not. It's a model, it's guidance. It's not an exact forecast. But we have seen stranger things. I remember not too long ago, a few years ago, I think it was Tropical Storm Joe, that made its way into Texas and then maintained tropical storm status going through Oklahoma, Missouri. I think it was still a tropical storm or depression by the time it went in towards Kentucky. So, yeah, you can maybe get the core circulation surviving that long on land. It's rare. But definitely I don't want people to not take the rain situation seriously, because look back in recent memory till last year, we're almost coming to the anniversary of Harvey, that dropped down in some spots 4 feet of rain.
Yeah, that was insane.
Warm.
Rain and surge are the big problems, says Tubes, and I agree with him completely. Yeah, that is front and center here. Rain and the storm surge. Bobby Livingsworth, I don't know what that means. Florence is not what it was projected to be. I don't know what that means. Let's see. Will New York City get hit by anything else in the Atlantic? Asks Ken Bando TV. Not that I can see. You don't have the upper air to set up in the right way for anything to move up the East Coast, and that's evident by what's happening with Florence. So that's not coming up here for any kind of direct hit, obviously. And in terms of the other systems that are out there, I would say probably not, from what I'm seeing today.
Yeah, at least any of those players in the field, so to speak. But we always say, regardless of how active or inactive a season looks, it only takes one storm coming in across your area to make the season well known to you and not such in a friendly manner. So that's why we always prepare for these storms every hurricane season. And those that live down in the Carolinas, Florida, the Gulf Coast, they're used to this. They get prepared every year. Us so much up here in the New York City area, no, we don't typically deal with things like that, but I don't think you have to worry about anything coming our way anytime soon.
Seth Doman is 777. Once the steering mechanism shuts off, all bets are off. Well, yeah, I agree. That is correct. All bets would be off. It could go in any direction. Actually, what might happen, and I saw a couple of model runs that did this, there was a nudge to the northeast and east for barely noticeable, but it was there. And then the southwest motion takes over because the upper high to the north starts building like crazy. So, yeah, it is certainly possible. If it comes to a stall, you could see the center kind of move around and, very small movement in all sorts of directions before the southwest motion takes hold. The models, I got to tell you, Addison, looking at everything that's happened this week, at least in terms of the forecast and the track. You want to scroll down?
Yeah.
To the track
Nope.
And how the weather models have
wait,
been.
that one, sorry.
Okay. The track of the storm and how the models have handled this, and how the Hurricane Center has handled it. I have to tell you, to me, it's been exceptional. The errors have been small. In terms of the strengthening, it's behaved pretty much the way it has, except maybe the anticipation that this would have one last burst of strengthening before landfall, but it appears that's not happening. But the spreading of the storm, growing bigger geographically with the spreading of the gales is not good because of the surge. You want to address a question here?
Well, I just saw one person said, Seth Donuts responding to Joyce Mack saying, why did the weatherman miss the left turn last time? Or I guess this time.
Well, which time?
Yeah,
I'm not understanding that. So Seth Domin is 777. Clarify your question. Why did the weather persons miss the left turn last time? Is your question. So I'm trying. Oh, we're talking about Sandy. That's not true. That is not true. I don't know where you think that left turn from Sandy. If you're talking about Sandy, that was not missed. That was well advertised. It was not believed by a number of people that are in positions that should have believed it. I'm not going to get specific. Maybe on another day I might. But, and I'm not talking about anybody I worked with, by the way.
No.
But if Sandy's what you're getting at, I don't. That's not the case at all.
Let's see some.
Excuse me.
Sandy was 1,000 miles wide, but was a Cat 1 in Atlantic City. Florence is 550 miles wide and way more powerful hurricane. Well, I mean, like comparing.
But it's apples and oranges,
Yeah.
Cruzan Mongoose. At the point where Sandy came in, it was actually no longer a true tropical storm.
Yeah, it was transitioning towards extratropical, which means it was losing those core characteristics. It was losing that warm core, but you still had to deal with the wind fields, still very powerful in the storm surge. And we had an astronomical high tide, and it made that hard left turn, like Joe was just mentioning about, and just slamming in towards the Jersey Shore. This is slightly different. This system is going towards the shore. It's slowing down. But we're dealing with just a hurricane, all warm core. We're not dealing with a transitional period. But Joe, like you mentioned about the winds, the wind fields, just because you see the category go down from a 4 to a 3, and you see the wind speed sustained go down from 140 to 120, oh, it's getting weaker, oh, it's not going to be that big of a deal. It's still a very big deal, especially if you're right along the coast, because now with the storm not as strong, not as together, that core around the winds, around the center circulation, you're now expanding yourself out a little bit, allowing you to put more weight on the surface of the ocean, and it still has that forward momentum, and it's still pushing all of that ocean. Now it can push more ocean towards the coastal areas for a prolonged period of time.
Greenfire 919. So, if the Northeast is under such a big high, why is the weather so miserable? Well, we've got the high beginning to build. In the meantime, we have this decaying cold front overhead, and it's going to take another day and a half or 2 days to get that out of the way. The weather this weekend for where we are, actually, it could turn out. I think it's going to turn out okay. We may be partly sunny both Saturday and Sunday with no rain, high humidity, but just a fairly decent late summer day. I'm just going through everybody's chat. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss any questions. If I do,
What if the weather?
Bobby Livingston, just so you know, I mean, you're saying it now looks like Florence will be a Cat 1 or Cat 2 at landfall now. That's not what the Hurricane Center is forecasting, by the way. And I would just kind of try not to focus too much on I would try not to focus on too much with regards to this. You know, you're dealing with a formidable hurricane, and you're dealing with huge storm surge issues and big rain issues. We'll see what happens at this point. You know, we're at the point now where we're just gonna just let the dice has been rolled, and we're just gonna let it play out. Let me just see if I can get a third person on here, so that'll just give me a chance. Addison, go ahead and pontificate a little bit while I'm
No
doing
problem.
this.
Yeah, I just hope that everyone has gotten into their mindset that these storms are serious. We had Sandy in recent memory. We had Harvey last year. Look what happened with Maria in Puerto Rico and Irma down across in Florida. These storms are devastating. Just because they don't hit your neck of the woods, your neighborhood, doesn't mean that they're all in all not that bad. Because trust me, you can go down to Puerto Rico and you can find many areas that are still quite that bad. So, friends, loved ones down there, if they haven't gotten to safe spots yet, if they haven't secured themselves yet, you're kind of running out of time. And not necessarily means that their life is in jeopardy, but it's certainly going to be in danger, and maybe in danger for a lot longer than anybody would like to have.
I'm trying to get Andrew Pinheiro on Skype. Are you there, Andrew? No. Okay, I guess he's not there. Andrew, are you still with us?
He's trying to phone.
Yeah. Hold on. Hang on, folks. Let's see if I can bring a third person on here.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Andrew,
Hi.
let me call. Listen, so I can get you on the screen. Let me call you.
Hello.
I will call you.
Hold on. Say that again?
I will call you.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, great. Now let's try it again. Sorry, folks, just bear with us here. This is modern technology at work.
Yeah, but feel free, everyone, to keep asking questions. That's what we're here for, to try and answer them as best we can, and hopefully put everyone's minds at ease. And we were here just to let you know what's going on, not trying to spin in any direction.
Thank you, Martha Sandwald. Really appreciate the kind words. She thinks
Thank
we're
you,
both
Martha.
awesome.
Mostly Joe, but
No, not at all. Stop. Okay, are you there, buddy?
I am.
Oh,
I hear you, but
this is really frustrating. Let's try. I'm going to try one more time.
it worked. Well, okay. Well, yeah, it's the same way we did with back at Facebook Live.
Yes, I'm going to try again.
Just good old technology.
Exactly.
All
All right, he's
connected.
answered.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Andrew?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There you
I see. Oh, good. We can see you now.
Can we hear you?
Can we
Yeah.
hear you?
I can hear you.
Andrew, can you hear us?
I can hear you fine.
Hang on, Andrew. Let me see if this works. Talk to me.
Hello. Can you hear me?
No, still can't.
Yeah, I can't. We can't hear you, pal.
Okay.
I've got the volume turned up. We should be able to hear him.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any feed come on in.
Let's
Yeah,
see.
Oh wait, what's that X? One setting is muted. Skype. Yeah.
Try again, Andrew.
Hello?
Talk.
Can you hear me? Can you
Nope.
guys hear me now?
Not happening.
Oh.
Talk again.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
That's the setting right there. But so that setting's
Right.
just not coming in.
I don't understand. I'm not sure. We're having some technical issue. Oh, wait a minute. Now talk.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Who turned our speakers off?
Speaker off. My
okay.
bad. All right, Andrew, let me get you back on the screen here. Hang on 1 second.
All right.
I just got to do a little bit of maneuvering. And
We're dual streaming at the same time, and Delvin wants to say he's in both of our streams.
Oh, that's very cool. I was wondering where he was. I haven't seen him the last couple of days. Okay, so we got the three of us here all side by side. I'm hoping and assuming that my folks can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead, talk a little more. I just want to adjust the volume on the speaker.
All right. Hello. Can you guys hear me now fine?
Yep, sounds like we can hear you quite well.
right,
So
sounds good.
that's good. And hopefully there's no echo.
Let's see. Can
All
we
right.
check with everybody else?
All right, so listen, Andrew, so can you explain the meteorology behind what we're seeing this afternoon is the fact that the storm is expanding in its geographic size, and but the maximum winds have dropped, even though the pressure has remained the same. Okay, so because there seems to be this kind of there's a little bit of confusion here. Everybody's kind of focusing in on the max winds, but the expansion of the gales is serious because that may exacerbate the storm surge.
Yeah, I always do the reference of the figure skater. I don't know if you guys talked about
Yep.
that. With the figure skater's arms outward versus pulling tightly inward.
I've used that several times myself, Andrew.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead again.
All right. So essentially, with that, if you think of a figure skater with their arms spread outward, the bigger the storm gets, the slower the person is speaking, or the spinning, I should say. Once they hold their arms inward with the figure skater, that has to do with the moment of inertia in the center of mass of that person. It has to do with the same thing with the hurricane. So as the hurricane kind of pulls itself more inward, you see those winds get faster.
Right. The tighter, as it gets bigger, the pressure gradient is actually slightly relaxing. So even though the pressure itself hasn't changed, and it would be supportive of winds that would be higher than what's being picked on the maximum now, but the expansion of the gales, as we, that I think is probably more important in all this, because that is going to mean that the area of impact from wind, from storm surge, is going to be is going to be larger than geographically than what it was.
Yeah, and I was just looking at some of the comments. Anthony has joined me in my chat here and talked about the exact same thing. Now, the other thing I was talking about just before I joined you guys was a Rex block. Did you guys talk about that yet?
Well, we talked about the upper high and how it's splitting in two, and then you've got another ridge that builds across the top up in New England. You know, by the way, we're TV guys because when we talk, we're moving with our hands.
All the time.
But we didn't actually mention the Rex block. If you go ahead and explain that.
Yeah, so this I actually looked up. There's a great article with the National Weather Service. Discovery of the Rex block is everybody immediately when I first learned about it thought of a T-Rex. Has nothing to do with that. His name is Dr. Daniel F. Rex, who discovered and analyzed the pattern in 1950. So what this has to do with is a high pressure system directly to the north of a low pressure system. In the northern hemisphere, we have clockwise rotation around a high pressure and counterclockwise rotation around a low pressure. When they're on top of each other, you get this kind of figure 8 motion of the wind pattern, and that kind of cancels each other out. The example I was talking about with like forces was I have a hard drive here. Say this hard drive is 1 pound. I'm pushing upward with a certain amount of force while gravity is pulling downward with the same amount of force.
Right.
That means it's net zero. So with this Rex block,
And actually, you know what?
Net zero movement.
I can let me bring up what you're describing, okay? So everybody can see. I'll bring up the GFS upper air. Well, actually, I have the European. I guess that's as good as any. I'll just widen up the picture here. We're going to disappear, or I'll minimize us here for a moment. Andrew, we can still hear you, just we can't see you right now at the same time.
Okay.
I need to talk. You and I need to talk because I got to figure out how I can get you a separate image of you another time. I'm going to get on the phone with you and you're going to talk me through it. Okay. So I've got the European upper air, and we can go to. Actually, you could see what you've described going on for tomorrow in terms of the upper high kind of cradling around the hurricane.
And I'm pulling I have the Tropical Tidbits GFS up.
All right. Well, I can switch to that.
Yeah, and that was showing pretty much same thing what you were looking at with the Euro, but the high to the north is kind of doing this figure 8 motion.
Right.
With the wind flows.
Yep, and we were, just for everybody listening, that we were talking about blocking high or high pressure to the north. The Rex block is the official name to it, but you can definitely see that it's doing exactly what Andrew was describing, getting this like figure 8 motion right there in the winds, and also that it's not allowing that system to go northward, because you would typically get tropical systems to start curving up to the north, going through the Atlantic Ocean. This one, it's moving west and then southwest, so it's definitely an uncharacteristic motion, but we're dealing with an uncharacteristic weather pattern.
By the way, I'm going to bring up the satellite, and
that looks good.
Yeah, that does. So Andrew, we're doing a little Brady Bunch thing here. I don't know if you can see, but
I can see it.
I've got you in a box. I've got me and Addison and I in another box, and we've got Florence here on the visible as it goes to infrared. The eye looks still pretty impressive, though. The eye is still intact.
Yeah, I think you're going through a little bit of that overcast cloud density layer being visible around top of the eye. That's why you can't really quite see it all that well, at least in the visible imagery. And once you switch to infrared, you can see it a little bit better. But what do you think, guys, about maybe the system might be going through an eyewall replacement cycle at some point soon?
That's for you, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm looking at the satellite, too, that you have up. It almost kind of looks like it's starting. But I don't know if it would...
What, an eyewall replacement cycle?
Yeah, the eyewall replacement.
The southern quadrant, the southwest quadrant looks looks slightly open. The Hurricane Center in their discussion didn't talk too much about this, about whether is there maybe a little bit of dry air that's getting entrained in there, or if there's a little bit of shear going on, but they really didn't mention it. You see what he's
bringing up? I usually use the Colleges Du Page website for any kind of satellite stuff.
I mean, do you see that differently? I'm curious.
Not really. Let me just see if I get a closer look.
Yeah, if you look at the last few frames, it looks like there's it's a little open there on the southwest quadrant.
Yeah, it's definitely looking a touch little ragged, I should say, down across the southwestern quadrant. But maybe you see a little bit of some dry air trying to intrude across the area. In fact, if the last frame or two, as it's switching to infrared, you can see those clouds are a little bit thinner southwest of the eye. So yeah, that's why it's weakening a little bit. There's a little bit of some dry air trying to get embedded in there. Maybe that's coming in from land, getting pulled into the system as it's approaching. But nonetheless, it's still going to be holding on very strongly, I believe, to a major hurricane. And in fact, Joe, just looking at the time, we should be getting an update from the National Hurricane Center, intermediate update coming up.
And before we even do that, we have a pass. Andrew, I had to take you off the screen here for a second, but you're still with us.
Right.
I'm also on Tropical Tidbits. Levi Cowan, and by the way, he needs to be given some kind of an award.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have the latest Air Force recon is flying in at the moment. I'm just trying to see because you have the satellite overlaid it, but he looks like he's actually in the southwest side. I'm just kind of getting a feel for the kind of winds he's seeing here. Actually, in the southwest side, the strong, there's 64 knot winds away from the center. Then you got 64 to 83 knots, 83 to 96 knots. Looks like at least on the southwest side, the strongest winds are not close to the actual center. They're actually a handful of miles to the southwest of the center.
Which means I think that might be leaning towards us seeing that eyewall replacement. Because you can see right there, right where the going towards the eye, but it's not clearly visible on the eye, on satellite. That might be where the new eye might be setting up.
Andrew, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right, hold on. I'm getting a little audio issue here with you. I'm hoping it's not popping too well. Let me bring you back. There you go. So, what do you think with respect to multiple landfalls here for tomorrow for areas in coastal North Carolina? I think it's certainly possible. When you've got models literally sitting it right on the coast, 15 miles, which is a great forecast, it can make a huge difference here for somebody.
I certainly think it's possible too, just because it's going to be stationary for a while, so it could do this little wobble back and forth.
Yep, we saw that with Faye going across Florida multiple times several years ago. Matthew going up the Florida coastal areas. I think 3 years ago, did a similar thing where just kind of wobbled right across the coast, just kind of bouncing back and forth over it. And you're just getting like this buzzsaw effect going right up the shore, which is devastating because a lot of people, have a lot of homes out that way. A lot of people live over that way as well.
Andrew, you froze on the video, but it's just as well because we're going to probably have to wrap it up here soon. So thanks for calling in tonight. And you know what? You certainly have an open invitation to come on anytime. So by all means, just whenever you see me, just give me a ring, okay?
Yeah, no problem. I was streaming, and then I got some comments saying that you were streaming at the same time, so I figured I'd jump in for a little bit.
Very good. There's no stream like a double stream.
It's
Exactly.
latest update, Andrew. While we have you briefly before we say goodbye, it's
Sure.
now winds down to 5 miles per hour. It's down now 115 miles per hour. Still Category 3, and the gales extend up from the center. Still 195. Pressure has gone up to 956.
All right, so we are seeing some weakening here that's occurring.
Yeah.
And that could be an eyewall replacement issue. We'll listen. This is good news, actually, if this is something that's a trend, because at least it takes the edge off the severity of the hurricane while it's offshore. So I can already envision. We don't even know what's going to happen yet. I'll save my comment for what I was thinking in my mind for another time. Andrew, I'll talk to you soon. Okay, pal.
All right, I'll see you later.
Bye.
See you, Andrew.
Bye.
All right, we're still here, folks. I just want to come back to the board because we're going to wrap it up. So Addison just mentioned with the latest advisory, there has been a little bit of weakening with respect to the last 3 hours or so. There's an Air Force plane made its first pass. We'll see if it's a trend. It may just be an eyewall replacement cycle, and we do, some of the models, the strength, some of the models do have it trying to come back. In Wilmington, it's not even raining because it's not supposed to be raining in Wilmington. St. Davis, you have to have an understanding of how these things how these things work. It's not raining. It's not supposed to be raining. In fact, it should have been a really gorgeous day, and all you have is the approach of high clouds. So there's nothing new here.
The proverbial calm before the storm. So yeah, you are getting some light scatter showers right on the coastal areas. We saw a lot of the network newscasts get rain during the 6:30 time frame as they're reporting live on it. So as we go through the day tomorrow, you're going to see conditions start to go downhill. And just because you don't see massive devastation in your area, one, I don't know why you would want that, but two,
Right.
Your system is approaching. So, hopefully you're prepared for dealing with that and not getting caught off guard.
Bob's Place, this is not referring to you or any of our guests, or for Joe or for Andrew, and I agree with what you're saying here, that this storm has been overhyped to the point that some have talked like it's the end of the world. I have heard some hyperbole on some other channels that is so inappropriate, and I agree with you. This is a problem. This is a big problem for us, and it's certainly something that I've struggled with over the years with this, and trying to convey an honest message about what is out there and what we're dealing with. And when you start hearing these sort of cliched phrases that get put up, I can't remember the specific phrase that I saw on one of the network news channels with regards to referring this storm as if it was the greatest ever. Okay,
unprecedented storm,
unprecedented
storm
and
of
all.
the century.
That's
of
just
this
nonsense.
Year. I mean, all honestly, that is stuff that is done to get headlines out, get your attention, and not to like alarm you to the point of like that they are, you know, overhyping, more so that they're trying to get your attention to be like, take this storm seriously, because last thing you want is someone caught off guard because, I'm not gonna worry about it, not that bad. Oops, now my house is flooded and I'm going downstream. Nobody wants that.
Look, I think the biggest issues here are going to be tidal surge and rain. And those two things are going to happen, whether it's a 120, 115. Wind. The wind is destructive, obviously, and that is at least if that part of the equation gets tempered, that would be certainly helpful. But the rain issues with this are going to remain, and the tidal surge issues are going to remain regardless.
Yeah.
So, but it's very frustrating for me. I mean, we had the governor of our state in New York and the governor of New Jersey yesterday warning people about impending heavy rains, severe flooding, and strong winds for New Jersey and Long Island, which was just insane. I mean, that was just... I called up one of my former colleagues, and one of the reasons why I'm in this business. I called up Alan Casper, who was a meteorologist in New York for many years, and in New Jersey on New Jersey 101.5 radio, where I worked with him there. And we both were just astounded because that was just not indicated at all, and we're fighting this sort of countermeasure. Now, I kind of get what they're going at.
Yeah.
They're trying to get people aware. They're also trying to cover their rear ends, which is what politicians, usually do. So I understand that. All right, but there is a way of doing this. Our colleague Brian Fitzgerald pointed out that in Pennsylvania, for example, which is a big weather state, in Pennsylvania, when something serious happens where the government has to step up and call press conferences that are weather related, they have a state meteorologist that comes on with the governor and or whatever official, and if they say something that might be meteorologically incorrect, the guy is right there and oftentimes jumps in and corrects them. This is what this was needed certainly in this case for my area because of the fact that they I don't know if they misunderstood what they were reading with respect to the storm or what they were told about it or who was telling them, but it's frustrating because then you're at home sitting, this is getting hyped up and all the rest of it. Well, there's a legitimate threat that has to be expressed, and we need to express it in a very logical way relative to what's going on. And that things like that make it very hard for us to do, and that drives me crazy.
I couldn't agree more. We're here to keep everybody informed, protect lives, and that is our utmost concern. And we don't try and spin it any other way. We hope that people take the word of trained, educated, certified meteorologists seriously.
Right. And you know what? At this time, my stomach is screaming to me. All right, JM, I'm sorry. Possible rainfall amounts in Beaufort, South Carolina. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Beaufort or Beaufort?
Or is it Beaufort? Let us know. Look, I'll put up... I'll go back. We'll put up... Beaufort or Beaufort. I don't know. If it's southern, I'm going to think. I would think it would be Beaufort, but I'm not making fun. By the way, I lived in the South. I love the South. Had a great time there while I lived there. So let's bring up the rain potential map. So can you check on your phone geographically where Beaufort, South Carolina? I used to know this stuff off the top of my head, and we can at least look at the Weather Prediction Center's map here for you. Okay, I don't want to leave anybody out.
There's a Beaufort, South Carolina, Beaufort, North Carolina, so he didn't specify.
Oh, all right. Well, let's give it to them both.
So Beaufort, South Carolina is halfway between Savannah, Georgia, and Charleston. It's right next to Hilton Head Island.
Okay, so it's right on the coast.
Right on the coast.
So it looks like, in terms of rain, they've got you in the zone of 6 to 10 inches. This is, by the way, this is 7-day rainfall, so I just want to make that clear. This is the Weather Prediction Center, 6 to 10 inches. A lot is going to depend for you on the track, because if it goes in further east, that may cut your rainfall amounts down. If the center of low pressure winds up tracking north of you, let's say it goes in near Myrtle Beach and then goes west-northwest toward Columbia, the southern part of that rain shield may get cut off. So just bear that in mind. Now, where's Beaufort, North Carolina?
Beaufort, North Carolina. Let's see, my phone was freezing. It's on the coast, and it is just east of Jacksonville, east of Morehead City. So
all right. Well, you're in that the purple, which is 15, and possibly in that 20-inch zone over the next 7 days.
And
so
they are protected right by a barrier island, and right by they have an inlet right there, marshlands as well. So either way you slice it, if you're in a Beaufort, you got to be concerned with rain, wind, and surge.
Okay. I have a feeling that DM is somebody I know, because I had this discussion this afternoon.
Yes.
Mac, if that happens to be you.
Mac or Paul?
I don't think it's Paul. I'm thinking it's Mac. Mm-hmm. We'll find out soon enough. Do you think it's possible for Florence to track further north than NHC is predicting? Well, there are some of the hurricane track models that do have a course further north. At this point, we're basically going to be hour by hour and just kind of forecasting it. Once it gets close to the coast and we can see it on the radar, I think the possibility is there. I can't say no. No to that. They get mad at you when they call it Buford. Okay.
See, at least that's spelled where I can guess how it's pronounced. Buford.
Thank you. Now, can we resolve whether it was South or North Carolina?
Please.
That would be great. My buddy Chris Alley is on, retired. Good to see you, and
Thank you.
Appreciate the kind words. Aaron Goodwin, Tropical Storm Olivia, moving through Hawaii right now. Maui flooded out, as he points out. I got to tell you, Aaron, I haven't had a moment's chance to even look at what's going on elsewhere.
I think it's going to be a tropical storm hitting the main Hawaiian Islands. But that's as far as I know about that area. Sorry.
All right, so DM, it's actually okay. Here's an honest question: if planes can fly, why not a helicopter? You want to try it? I wouldn't recommend it.
No, because the plane flies through the storm. I don't know anybody that really has flown a helicopter through a storm. Different aerodynamics, I believe, going in towards flying a helicopter. But I mean, you can fly above the hurricane and go down. I don't know if there are any helicopters that can go that far up in the atmosphere. So either way you slice it, no. I wouldn't want to be on that helicopter if it did try. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I think with respect to, just to wrap it up really quick here, because we got to go.
Say anything about Savannah, Georgia.
Savannah would be, you're going to have to take a track. You're going to have to get it closest to the European as possible for you to have impact with regards to Savannah. And you're right, Gary Brown, it is starting to get a little bit silly. But, we've been talking so much with serious stuff here for the last hour. We just had to have a little bit of a release. Okay, so we're going to say goodbye. Addison, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you for coming on. Andrew Pinheiro also joining us from earlier. Thank you very much for being here. I hope I got to everybody's question. If not, there will be the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is coming up at 9:15 here on Facebook. I'm sorry, 9:15, not on YouTube, on Facebook. You get the uploaded show after it's done. If you can't be on Facebook, you're going to just have to wait for it. Also, you can get it later on. For those of you who are interested, You can support my channel via Patreon, where you can get extensive weather coverage every day. It's just a couple of bucks a month, or the price of a cup of coffee. And I have a link that I put up here on the chat board. One last thing, let me just say that we're a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for this channel to earn fees by linking to Amazon and its affiliated sites. So if you click on the Amazon link on the descriptor of this video, you get your stuff. Amazon throws me some coin. I can get some coffee. I can get a cigar, and everybody's happy. Schedule for tomorrow, 9 a.m. live stream here on YouTube, and we'll do another live stream tomorrow night. We'll start it at 7 o'clock, and we'll see what's happening. If there's a lot of stuff going on, we may go for a long time. So I think they let me go 4 hours here on YouTube.
Yeah, why not? You know, as long as you can go. Yeah, you can go that long in 4 hours, and I'll try and join tomorrow. Maybe not at 7 o'clock. But it was fun to be here. Thank you. I'm at Meteorologist Addison Green here. For those that were just chiming in, like, hey, who's that other guy? You don't see me too often on YouTube here with Joe, but I usually do chime on in with the live Joe and Joe show, roughly around 9 o'clock on Facebook, and that's where you can also find my page, Meteorologist Addison Green on Facebook.
All right, and yes, I saw the question. We'll try to address. We did address the remnant issue for the Northeast and the Northern Mid-Atlantic states earlier in this, if you caught the stream late. But we will do it on the Joe and Joe show tonight. Okay, folks, well, have a great evening, and we'll see you later.